we got, let's see. Having some difficulties a little bit. Let me just ask a real quick question to those folks out there. Hey, Ken, are you there?
I am. Can you hear me?
Okay, great. Okay, obviously you guys can hear me. My apologies for doing that to everybody. Real quick, I really appreciate it. Sorry I'm running a little bit late. We wound up having some technical difficulties there and being able to log in. I'm hoping everything's great. Welcome to everyone that's here. We have folks from Department of Labor, the Veterans Administration, ICE, Navy, Army, NIH, the Maryland National Guard, and the Massachusetts National Guard and USDA, and a couple of other folks that signed up for at the last minute. So glad that you all could join us. I see some folks that I know. And real quick, I'm Dave Lowe. I'm the Director of Government Solutions with DCC, and I have with me Ken Cheslick, who is one of our main guys in working in running things with DCC. Say hello, Ken.
Hello, everybody. How are you doing today?
Awesome. It's great to have you with us. I appreciate you joining me for this particular thing. Real high-level overview of DCC as an introduction. We were founded in 1979. We have over 30 years of experience. A lot of the folks a lot of folks out there know us already, but we do a lot of work with General Dynamics, Northrop, and the folks at Raytheon, and all the folks that you would normally see out there. Our goal is to be engaged with you to provide the solutions that you need, and those of you that know us know that we started out in the equipment world and supplying things, and we still do that, the commodity IT components. And the biggest thing about that is we are vendor agnostic. It doesn't really matter to us what it is that you want implemented, as long as it is in line with what it is that you need to accomplish. And that's what gives us the 98% repeat business that we're getting from everybody that's out there. We are the go-to resource for oddball and weirdware. We wind up doing that a lot of times just in the front end so that you can see the kind of value we bring. And we provide our expertise to you in the virtualization world, which is what we're talking about. We're talking about big data in a small footprint today, and data center consolidation, all in funneling into that virtual environment. The objective here is to assist you in procurement and also in the IT side in understanding the virtual and cloud environment, so that you understand what's coming down on your head with some of these initiatives that are there, and just a dialogue on the best practices that are in line with those initiatives, so that you know what to do with, what to look for, some of the pros and cons, big on keeping you out of hot water and making sure that the things that are happening you're not rushing into and then wind up losing money or losing face for your organization. We'll talk about a little bit, real briefly, about our vehicle and options that you can do a purchase from us, but really to give you the links and resources that for the things that are affecting your world. Just real quick, I tried to catch up with some folks earlier. If you have the ability to have audio, sorry about that. That was sensitive. But on the right-hand side, you can open your panel up on the right-hand side, and you can put in your audio pin so that we can get to you and be able to provide dialogue. You can also chat with us or provide, if you have any questions or you have any insight on things for folks to be able to give them additional information, feel free to enter it and we will share it with everyone. And this is what you asked for. This would be the best briefing ever, one, if it was brief, if it wasn't too technical, and if the information relates to real-world examples. We love this because that's what we like to do, tie these in with you. And some of the folks need help with performance-based procurement. Great questions, and I will go to the folks that asked that and make sure that we get that in there. We need meeting initiatives, sample scopes of work were asked for, and Kirk with the Army Corps is beyond help, which is okay. We'll do our best for you, Kirk, and make sure that you can follow along. Hopefully, we can keep that there. All of this that we're talking about is driven from Executive Order 13514, which establishes the vision for cloud virtualization environments and driving us there. the CIO Council got together and created a shared services strategy, which includes FedRAMP. Most of you are familiar with that, with FedRAMP and some of the guidelines there. But this also includes bring your own device, and you hear these terms like PaaS and IaaS and SaaS and all these things that are affecting this world, platform as a service, software, infrastructure, all these as a service. These are new things that are being introduced to the federal space, and the whole idea is to share resources and get cost savings from being able to consolidate. We'll be talking about that and tying these in with initiatives, especially when you're talking about your green initiatives. Everything here I like to do so that we can help you understand all the implications and places where you can get some of those brownie points that you're looking to get for your agency. A lot of things around those green initiatives, but also big data is big. There was a release in March 2012 for initiatives there, cybersecurity February 2013, and open data for May of 2013. We're not going to dive into all these real deeply, but these are the things that are coming down that are affecting your world, especially when it comes to dealing with the reduction of the total data center floor space. Here's some requirements for OPM, and they're very aggressive to improve the power usage and effectiveness by 20% and decrease the energy for IT and decrease the number of physical servers by 80%. A lot of this is because there's redundancy out there and things that are happening at different places that could be done in one central location and a lot more effectively in utilization of the resources that are there as opposed to just partial usage in sporadic and different locations. So what we're going to talk about first, though, is what virtualization is, the benefits of virtualization, and some industry examples that you're probably familiar with already, but maybe not know that they're really in the virtual environment. As far as virtualization itself, we're talking about a technology that makes it look like it's happening right there on your local machine, your computer right there where you're operating. Each device is self-contained. If it's virtualized and you put it off someplace else, it looks like your environment, but it's really not housed there. It's not being run from that engine that's in your computer anymore. It's being run off someplace else. But each one of those is separate. They can't see each other. You can't see somebody else's virtual environment. And they appear as if they're operating as real devices in your world. And all these are different types of virtualizations. You have hardware, desktop, software, memory, data, network, and storage. Everything that you can think of that involves your computer system usually revolves in that. Today we're going to be talking about hardware and data and the network components, the pieces that are behind the scenes, if you will, that are running the environment, that give you the appearance that it's happening on your desktop. And here's a classic example of a virtualization situation where you have your Microsoft Office. Everybody's used to using that pretty much out there. So you have your Word and Excel and all those pieces, and that can be running on your own machine, whether it's a laptop or a PC at your desk. But what happens is if this desktop goes down, well, in a virtual environment, everything runs, and all you just need to do is access that. So it still runs, so you can just grab anything that has access, and you can still run those applications that you're running every day. You can also run from home. There's a lot of work from home initiatives that are happening that you're familiar with, and you can have access to your files, all of your folders that you would normally have, and it looks and acts like your PC. And it's safe and secure, too, because you're the only one that has access to that with the privileges that you have. So it's just an example of how those things work. And the objective here is to reduce the overall footprint, the physical footprint of everything that revolves around your IT, especially in the data center world. It allows us to consolidate those devices, consolidate resources, so you're not running multiple operations with people that are only using a portion of their time. And it can be centrally managed, which is great because everybody, you can see this from anywhere, but it's centrally located, and it saves power. It saves money in that power as well, and works with any approved device. So anything that you have, it's a smartphone and you want to access your files, you can do that too, if it's approved and if you have access to that, which is why you're seeing so many of these bring your own device components as well. Some of these examples that we use every day, but we might not even realize, is that with connectivity, we have access to Amazon.com where we can sell things and we can buy things. So it's not our storefront, but we can create a storefront and we can do purchases. But the items really aren't there for us to be touching and feeling. They're out there someplace else. So Amazon is one place. Our online banking, we can handle our money. We can do things back and forth. We can pay bills without having our checkbook. So another example, iTunes, Netflix. We never even we don't have to go to the video store anymore and pick up a DVD. We can just click and we can view that. The video is never really resident on our computer, but we have interface with it and we can stop it, start it, and use it as if it was on our own box. So you don't have any, all you need is connectivity to get from here to there, and you don't have to update anything. Everything's handled by somebody else. All those updates are handled by somebody else, and any supported device with appropriate credentials gives us access to our information and our data. And when we start talking about peeking behind the curtain of big data in a small footprint, so a lot of times we're saying pay no attention to the man behind the curtain, but in this instance we're going to show you what that looks like, and it all revolves around FDCCI, which is the Federal Data Center Consolidation Initiative, which is to increase the virtualization of distributed systems. So we have systems that we're using every day, what you're using every day and what you see every day. A lot of folks are logging in using a remote terminal or a virtual terminal with Citrix, and you get to be able to see what's happening in your environment and be able to operate in that environment. So we can do that, and it's to adopt the cloud-based infrastructure to meet the demands that are happening, the variable demands. You can turn up servers, and you can turn down servers, and you can, in a virtual environment. You have the access to be able to put on different projects and have different software running in a virtual environment. And really what it does is improve the efficiencies, both the energy efficiencies and also your staffing efficiencies of the remaining data centers, where you don't have to have all that concentration. It can be put into instead of having 400 different data centers, you can consolidate that into just a few, and it reduces the duplication of those environments. I was talking with Steve Van Rokel the other day, and we were talking about big data, the big data influx, and $200 million for R&D, and this is just to identify the tools and techniques needed to access and glean discoveries for these huge stores of data. We're gathering so much information. The idea is we want to be able to utilize that information, but you have to have access to it and be able to process it appropriately. And there's 6 different departments within this that are dealing with big data, and this is just with this $200 million in R&D, right? We have a lot more that's being spent in other areas, and we'll talk about that in a few minutes, but there's some of the folks that are doing that. And the key players in this data center consolidation, and the idea is to drive every agency to do more with less. One of the things that's really clear within this administration is that we want to adopt the new methods that are out there to look for revolutionary change versus evolutionary change, and to stop funding the things to do patchwork on what you're doing right now, and be able to invest the money in places where you can get doing more with less instead of doing less with more infrastructure. So here's what we have as part of that. And Steve was talking about, immediately he came out and said, look, I'm cutting IT budget by 10%. And everybody was, oh my gosh, how are you going to do that when IT is such an important component? Well, he pulled it back and said, I'm going to reinstitute it if you target your dollars within these places to drive to the cloud, bring your own device, cybersecurity, big data. These are the places where we're talking about the funding and being able to have access to that funding that is being made available to your agencies. And now we're going to talk about specific hardware brands that are driving your virtualization requirements. And I'm going to bring Ken into this because Ken knows more about this stuff than I do. And we'll give some high-level overviews, and we're going to dive down into some specifics there. Ken, are you there to be able to help drive this?
I am.
Cool. All right, well, we jump into here. We see that there are 3 major players, and everybody knows these names. IBM, HP, and Dell make up 70.7% of the purchases that are happening out there. And everything that's happening in the federal space is a microcosm that's happening around the world, and there's billions, obviously, being invested in this. And then we have a couple of smaller players that pop up, which are also pretty familiar to most folks, Cisco and Fujitsu. And the interesting thing is Cisco's having to really reinvent themselves in this environment because instead of being a hardware-based environment, it's virtual. And tell us a little bit about that, Ken, about how this changes the dynamic for having all the hardware that you would normally have for switches and all those things, and where we're headed with these.
Well, they've typically, in a traditional environment, servers are connected to switches and routers, and users are connected similarly, and all the traffic routes through these switches and routers, going back and forth to each other. So what the manufacturers have done was put a lot of that infrastructure on board, and through virtual switching and routing have made it, number one, more efficient because there's less latency. Even though the speeds are incredible, sometimes distance can cause latency. So by having it all self-contained, singularly managed, and working with each other, our throughput is terrific. And so we're seeing less latency, we're seeing less complication, you'll see less of a spider's nest in your data center with wires. It becomes simpler to implement, simpler to manage, and more efficient for the user.
Excellent. And that's when you start talking about pulling all these pieces into the same unit, it's kind of like what we've done with our phones, right? We have smartphones now. It used to just be a phone, but now it's really a little computer, and everything's interrelated there, so that you don't have to go anywhere else. Everything's being piled in that same box, so that these items, all the processing back and forth and all the switching is happening within a box. And when we talk about evolutionary change, and if you see if you can turn your mic up a little bit, Ken, it's a little bit low or something's funky with it. But if you can, great. If you can't, that's okay.
Okay.
But
is that better?
Yep, that's better. Evolutionary change we see between with what a lot of folks are familiar, and you've seen these procurements for blade technology and the servers that have multiple functions. And this is where we are with IBM and Dell. And one of the reasons why I think the timing of this particular session, and what I love about what we're comparing here, is the blade technology essentially has multiple servers in the boxes, but it's more along the lines of replicating everything that would normally be in a regular server. Isn't that right?
Yes. So what we're doing here is we're utilizing a lot of the hardware that is duplicated across multiple servers and taking advantage of capacities that have to date not been utilized. So each of these blades will fully utilize all of the integrated components within the chassis, as opposed to having, two chassis or three chassis that have all the similar components, and none of them are being fully utilized.
And a lot of that revolves around power supplies, and power supplies being a key piece for sucking up the energy and and that's one of the reasons why you get some really good efficiencies of scale when you're talking about these types of things. Now, every once in a while you run into something, or somebody comes out and they jump ahead of the marketplace, and that's one of the places where we are today with HP's Moonshot, and the way that they're operating as opposed to just doing a typical blade. Isn't that right, Ken? How does this work?
Well, they've taken it a step further by miniaturizing the actual processing units and being able to cluster them in a very dense environment to not only take full advantage of the support hardware components, but also take advantage of physical space. Physical space being what it is, brick and mortar is typically the least attractive option when you're looking for data centers to actually build. So with this and being able to reduce the footprint by so much and getting similar to greater computing capacity, they've really leapfrogged, in my opinion, what typically was the blade and even a lot of the integrated systems that are out there to date.
Because this is like a self-contained data center. We're actually looking at a self-contained data center right here. There's what we're looking at right now is 45 servers right there, and it's in I think, what is it?
5U box.
5U box. So, and as we look at this, one of the reasons why I like it, and it's new technology, so it's out there for you to be able to take a look at. But one of the things we like to do, because we're vendor agnostic, it doesn't matter to me whether we're doing IBM or Dell or HP, but every once in a while you see something that's unique that comes out, and we're talking about 89% less energy, 40% less space, 77% less cost, and 97% less complex. Now, how they figure out complexity, I'm not really sure, but I can tell you that the way that this operates is really pretty cool. And I'm not a data head or an IT guy. I just love when I see something that's new. And the biggest push is that this particular unit is like 3 full racks within your data center. And a full rack of these is like an entire data center. So you can consolidate when you talk about small footprint, and the costs associated with running that small footprint are all built so that within that one box you have the ability to be able to run what would normally be an entire data center, and the connectivity within that entire data center running in a very, very small footprint. Very interesting process here. And when we talk about, what are some of the things that you like most when you take a look at this moonshot thing, Ken?
Well, aside from what you've already noted for energy savings, cost savings, complexity savings, the ability to have in a disaster recovery scenario, if you have to run simultaneous data centers, and you start to look at what that costs an organization, it's a tremendous amount of money. And to have both of those running 24/7, 365, just in case one fails, then your expense is pretty hefty to get back online. So something like this, just take the footprint and imagine if you had a full data center and you needed to have a redundant data center, the floor space that requires, the manpower that requires, the management that requires, the maintenance, all of the update and patching. Even though most of that's automated, it still has to happen across a tremendous amount of units. And every time we introduce a new unit, we introduce a new point of failure or potential failure. So to be able to consolidate that and to work in a much smaller footprint, number one, your redundant, your failover data center, if feasible, could be right next door. It could be literally in the same building, even though that's not a best practice. But you have that option. You don't have to find a space that can give you 10, 20, 30,000 square feet for your data center. So your options become you have far more options going with a small footprint.
And that feeds into, Jeremy was asking the questions from the Air Force. We're implementing a non-hosted cloud environment. How would you recommend meeting the requirements for redundancy? And I think you just laid it out there that because of your ability to put this in such a small footprint, it can literally be housed just about everywhere, just about anywhere where you can at least get a decent closet to size to be able to handle this. We're talking about, again, it's revolutionary versus evolutionary. It's not just, it's like a leapfrog, like you said, Ken. It's really, really, really interesting.
Absolutely is.
So, and we're not going to, again, we lay this out so that you can see the types of things that are happening out in the environment.
Dave, if
yes.
I could add one more thing.
Sure, go ahead.
Many folks that spend time in a data center understand the cost and complexity of cooling. You eliminate that when you reduce the footprint by this much. Your cooling becomes, it doesn't have to be, your data center doesn't have to be built around a cooling plan. Your cooling can be almost an afterthought for this type of a footprint.
Which is totally different than it used to be.
Exactly.
Because you have, Liebert is a huge cooling company. We do work with them as well. And I know many people that are in that environment where, you have to have an entire power plant to run your Liebert equipment should something happen with your electricity.
Right.
It's incredible. So those are the types of, that's great advice too, Ken, is that you have so many different things that feed into the environment as we know it that is being changed by this type of a technology. And again, technology changes and comes and goes, and people catch up and people leapfrog, right? This is one of the leapfrogs. So again, great insight there. And some of the pros and cons, we're talking about data center consolidation, and a lot of times this is much more along the lines, talking about your cloud computing and virtualization. This is more along the lines of, hey, some of this stuff you're going to push to the cloud, and it's going to be hosted. Somebody else is going to be taking care of all that problem, right? You're going to put it on an Amazon cloud. You're going to put it on, CGI or whatever it happens to be. So you have you have a lot of different choices that are coming along because of the FedRAMP certifications. So you have choices of being able to host this someplace else and then do away with it altogether. And then there's certain things that you're going to have to do because not all these things are going to be able to be hosted. You're going to have to host your own, or it will be non-hosted, if you will. So some of the pros and cons here we're going to talk about kind of that go across all those. No matter how you look at this, there's agility and there's flexibility and there's scalability in this new environment because you can pop these things in. These are off-the-shelf things. So you have the ability to ramp them up quickly. In a cloud environment, you may be able to ramp it up virtually and without ever seeing anything and turn up different aspects of these servers and shut them down. There's central control, which gives enhanced visibility across all of your network so that everybody can see it. It's distributed administration, which means you can essentially manage it from anywhere. Any one of your administrators can do that, and you have instant access to all your routers, all your switches, all your components. Everything that's associated, it's right there in one box. It meets your initiatives for cloud computing, center consolidation, centralized should be, enhancing your cybersecurity because you can batten down the hatches even better, and for green initiatives. Real important. If you're doing any of these things, make sure that you're seeing how they correlate back to your green initiatives to get those brownie points. Reduced costs are obviously part of this process, both from a real hardware cost to your cost of ownership and cost of utilization and improving that performance. Some of the cons for this is there's some things that cannot be virtualized. Some things you're going to have local to where you are. It could be because secure environment, could be any of those types of things. And so some of the applications will not be able to be virtualized, which enhances something like this that we're talking about with Moonshot because it so greatly decreases your footprint that you can essentially stick it anywhere you want within an office. You don't have to have, like Ken said, this huge building to be able to virtualize your environment. You are dependent upon connectivity. So if your connectivity goes down, you're out. You can't get to it. If the connectivity to your box, to this box goes down, you're out. Nobody can get to it. So there's a dependency there. Interoperability challenges using multiple vendors. And this is where we come in some instances because we look at it and say, okay, how do these pieces work together? Because sometimes like medications, mixing medications with your pharmacy is not necessarily a good idea and can cause complications. Well, it happens in the same way here, where you have some proprietary components and being able to work around those and work with those. Private versus public cloud, there's some features that may work and may not. And if you're virtualizing your environment, you may not have access to the physical device. Not saying that you can't get there, but you're logging in. You might be in Washington, D.C., but you could be going into something in Colorado or Idaho or wherever. It doesn't really matter where things are as long as they're housed properly. So you don't have physical access to the device. But other than that, everything is really a pro. So as far as keeping you out of hot water, and I love this. I love being able to share these things. Don't rush into what you're getting into. Don't let somebody drive it down on your head and make you buy something that really doesn't make sense. Engage your security team early if you're doing applications. Make sure that you can run these in a virtual environment without overstepping some guidelines, because there's certainly some guidelines for connectivity that way. Follow those FedRAMP guidelines. There's 295 of them, in case you didn't know, but there's people to be able to help you out through that in that virtual process. Apply the highest standards, and be careful about proprietary technology. Ken, we were talking about this before we popped in on this webinar. Tell us about some of the glitches and catches for that proprietary technology.
Well, Dave, the biggest issue with anything proprietary is, number one, it's proprietary. So you're single-sourced most times. And for things that are, for lack of a better word, in the public domain, they're run on standards. There's always a race to make the next product that's bigger, that's stronger, that's faster, that's cheaper. So you get the advantage of that technology race anytime you buy the standards-based product. And in some instances, proprietary is the only way to go. I mean, there may be just such a special need that nobody can address that through the standard productions. And if that's the case and you have to go there, that's that is what it is. But in most cases, especially today with software and flexible platforms and programmers everywhere, really, that are looking to expand and make their platforms more accessible, some of the proprietary stuff is going away. And so I guess the only thing to caution is when you lock into a proprietary technology, you are betting in the long run that that's going to be bigger, stronger, and faster than anything that the people making the standards-based technologies, hardware or software, will be able to produce. And just a caution there. But
absolutely, and I think that's good caution. In fact, a lot of that feeds into the next three items, which is verify those vendor claims. Make sure that they're actually capable of delivering what they say. I don't care what it is, just making sure that they claim that, and incorporate that into the documentation so that your service level agreements are holding their feet to the fire as opposed to your butt being on fire, if you would. And that really gets you to a place for being able to identify and look for the lowest total cost of ownership. And what Ken was saying about those, the proprietary things, generally more expensive to own in the long run because of the licensing agreements and the maintenance components because of the cost there. So finally, protecting your data and protecting your agency. Everything around this is in going to the cloud environment and getting pushed into virtualization. Make sure that you are protecting not just yourself with that, but your agency and the I've seen it way too often where you rush into things and next thing you know, you have yourself a data breach, and that has full exposure all the way through the public and everything else. So keeping your data safe and protecting your agency, very important things for that. If you have any questions about those pieces, feel free to reach out and give me a call. So with virtualization, your virtualization goals, standardizing, simplifying, automating, and ultimately meeting those initiatives that are being driven down, and this is what we're all about to help with that. Little self-serving things here for us for Dynamic Computer Corporation. We have a GSA Schedule 70. We can purchase off of that. We are a small business. We have plenty of partners. If you need 8A or service disabled or any of those things, you let us know, and we'll be able to fulfill those, no matter what you need for those. But this is our direct piece. You can check us out. We've done a lot of work in the federal space, as I mentioned before. Most of it's sub to prime, but we have a lot of direct work now that we're working with GSA through as well. The biggest benefits with us is vendor agnostic. Again, I'll say it again, vendor agnostic. We don't really care whether it's IBM or HP or Dell, whatever best suits your environment. For these initiatives, we thought it was interesting with HP and their Moonshot product and what they're doing and their whole program, being able to support that. So getting to a place where you're maximizing those cost savings, reductions in the time, resource allocation, all those things, and ultimately peace of mind. And everybody talks about quality, and I get this, good housekeeping seal of approval over here on the right-hand side. The question is, and I have a pet peeve that I was talking with Ken about this earlier, and that is that everybody says they have quality. McDonald's talks about quality, and Nordstrom's talks about quality, and they're just totally separate, right? You can't even equate the two. And the biggest thing nowadays, and when you're dealing with different vendors, is being able to isolate what quality really is. And one of the things that we have done is we've achieved our status with ISO certification. And whether there's plenty of folks out there to buy from. But look for ISO certification, because this gives you the comfort to know not when things are going well. Anybody can operate well when things are going well, but what happens when something goes wrong? That's what a quality control program is all about, is keeping things from going wrong and effectively changing and addressing things when things do go wrong. So we do have a quality focus. We are ISO certified, so keep that in mind as well. Any questions that you have for just anything dealing with virtualization or data center consolidation, and we're opening that up to the floor. And I have a couple that I've looked at. We mentioned Jeremy before, who asked the question about implementing a non-hosted cloud environment. This is one thing that you may be able to look for your redundancy, and presenting that for your IT folks as being an option potentially. And here's one for you, Ken. Sarah's asking the question: what are most people virtualizing? I mean, as a virtual environment, what is, and that's kind of broad. Is there anything in particular, Sarah, that you'd like to talk about with what people are virtualizing? Is it we see email virtualization, we see everything. Anything that you're using your computer for is being virtualized. Anything you want to add to that, Ken?
Well, yes. What I would add to that would be a lot of the user interface applications have gone from single server to a virtualized application. And, probably the best way to look at what can be done through virtualization and big data and presenting applications to a user on a device is a smartphone that today can do what a computer did just 5 years ago, and maybe as fast or faster, and is far more flexible. And so you start looking at, each one of those little apps that you would click could represent a virtualized application in your data center. And all we want to do is deliver that out to the user, so they can use it the way they need it and then put it away without having to worry about having it on their system and taking up system resources and sitting in the background. They use it and they discard it.
And that's the essence of your virtual environment with your smartphones and things. And there's a lot of, as you know, there's a lot of initiatives with BYOD, bring your own device, that you're seeing come through. A lot of folks, including some folks here that I know, are looking into that bring your own device environment. So certainly anything that revolves around that. How can you reach us? Well, absolutely. I'll get to that. I'll give you a slide in just a minute. Thank you for that. And we'll certainly talk with that. Now there's a question about, hold on one second, Performance-based procurement with so many prescriptive requirements. How do you deal with that? Tova, are you still here? Just want to see what, I don't see that you're here anymore. I'd have to get more information of that. Statements of work. Customers are unsure of what requirements are for transfer of data, and that's Mary. Mary, do you have your? Can I unmute you? Are you there? Did you plug in your PIN code? Okay. Let me see if Nanya is here. Nanya, there's a couple of questions. We'll get back to the folks that asked this and weren't able to stay. But Nanya was asking about that statement of work. We'll be glad to talk about statements of work. Anything with statements of work, shoot me an email and we'll be able to do that. And we'll wrap it up here. I know we're a couple minutes over. We started a couple minutes late. So we'll get you email. We'll email links to Executive Order 13541 and the rest of this information that's supporting just the general initiatives that are coming down on everybody. For us, here's our information that you can contact us directly. Here's Ken's information if you need something super technical, and my information is available for folks if you want to reach out. And I'm located in the DC area, so if you're in the DC area, I'd love to talk with you. I can swing by and we can talk. Ken's up in Michigan, but he's made himself available anytime, so he can also swing down. And our general contact information is here as well. So we'd love to have you reach out and talk to us. Thanks so much for joining us. I don't want to keep you any longer, but if you have anything specific, reach out to us and we will absolutely get to you. Ken, thanks so much for helping out and with those questions. I really appreciate it. And I got a couple that we have to reach out to people for, so I'll catch up with you.
Sure thing. Thanks, Dave. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks so much. Appreciate it, guys.